you all. Because as I'm sure you can imagine, the minute you get up in front of 30 people is when a live demonstration fails. So what I have done to minimize technical difficulties is make a recorded demo. And then once I show that, we can, if anyone would like to see further examples of anything, we can get onto the live site and just look at some other things. Okay, so this is just the new homepage now that books have become available and live in the world. And what I wanted to show you first is just a little bit about how we've made it a little bit easier for students and faculty to find JSTOR. I've just gone up to the login button, and as you can see, we've made a little list of institutions so that students can find themselves. And here I'm just going to find all the institutions in Israel. And as you can see, this is a list of everyone we work with in Israel, and students would just be able to log in via this page pretty easily. And then next, let's just look a little bit at a journal, how a journal is presented, and I wanted to show you how the, hang on one second, sorry. And I thought I would use the pilot titles as an example, so we'll be looking at the journal Horizons in Geography. And one thing that you can do is as you can see, now that books are part of our platform, the user can narrow by content type. And just start this up again. Now we're going to narrow by journals. Or first I click on a page. And then we can narrow it just to journals starting with that letter. And I'll just scroll down to find Ofakim, is that right? And then so here it is live. You can see the Hebrew right there. And we'll just open up a page, first issue, which is from 2008. And here you can see the article titles presented. And then here also, as I mentioned before, is where the survey lives, where people can click and write in. And one of the things I wanted to point out is if you can see where my little cursor is on the right-hand side of the page. Although the journal is in Hebrew, the navigation still has the page flipping kind of on the wrong side. So one of the enhancements that we'll be making, even though the pages are presented in the correct order, the user reaches for the wrong side to turn the page. So one of the things that we'll be doing is creating an enhancement so that the navigation will be on the correct side for the Hebrew reader. And then we'll just see a little bit about how this looks. And then I'm talking about changing the navigation.
Excuse me?
Yes.
The choice of fonts in Hebrew, did anyone guide you in the choice of fonts? I'm trying to be gentle. The font of the title is Serif, and today most of the databases in Hebrew you'll find sans serif.
It was scanned.
No, the title itself, Horizons
Oh,
in Geography.
you mean the text in the actual metadata of the title? That's a very good point. I don't know. I'll find out. So just to show you a little bit about how some of the image quality is in JSTOR, this is a map. And just like any of the content on JSTOR, everything is searchable, so we're collecting metadata on the captions, on the titles, on the author names, on the footnotes, on everything. And next I want to show you some searching. What I did for the purposes of the demo was just throw some search terms into a Word document so I could put them very easily. And so what I did is just get the Hebrew word for maps. Sort of a silly way of doing it, but just for the purposes of the demo. Searching for maps. And there's one article that a colleague of ours told me about that I thought would be kind of worth looking at. So we'll just scroll to the from number 16 there. And this is about, the writer of this article is sort of speculating on the location of an ancient city which is mentioned in the Quran. So this article, from what a friend of mine, a colleague of ours, tells me, that this is a valuable article just in terms of methodology for geography, and also interesting for historians of Islam and people studying the Quran. And it's also interesting because if we look at if we look at the page thumbnails, which will show up in a moment, you can see how many images are in this particular article. There's one that I thought was pretty interesting, which is there on page 53. And this is pretty neat because, just scroll down a little bit. And as you can see, this is a historical map from 1939 that was reproduced in the journal. And what's interesting about this particular location is that there's a lot of contemporary maps of this area available on the internet and on other search engines, but this particular historical produced here. So by making it available digitally, people will be able to find all kinds of images like this that were reproduced in these journals. Okay. And then I'm just going to do one more search. Just searching for another term for Tel Aviv. And I thought that it would be useful to look at this one so that we could see a little bit how the Hebrew content might hook into what we already have in JSTOR. So this is an article that's about changes in population to migrant workers in Tel Aviv. And this is actually a topic that is pretty well written about in the rest of JSTOR, obviously. And you can also see the search term highlighting for the user so they can see their search terms pop up on the page. And I just did a search for a similar term in English, so if a user happened to, like a lot of Hebrew readers, maybe you speak more than one language, they might try searches in different languages. So I searched for just migrant worker Tel Aviv. And it's a topic that certainly shows up very readily in JSTOR, like this article here in the International Migration Review. And so I think that it's kind of nice to see how the Hebrew content that we'll be adding will hook in very well with what's already in JSTOR.
Will someone be able to see the Hebrew article when he searches in English?
It's actually, it's sort of direct character matching, so if the user searches in Hebrew, they'll get Hebrew, and if the user searches in English, they'll get English. And I think that, as you can imagine, there's a whole host of incredibly detailed, sophisticated functionality along that kind of thing that could happen in the future. I don't think that won't be possible in this first iteration that we're doing, but in general, the sky's the limit.
Is there a link to the abstracts?
Yeah, the abstracts. Hebrew articles with English abstracts. Yeah.
Sorry, maybe you could one. Sorry.
Hebrew articles with English abstracts. Is the English abstract linked to the Hebrew article?
That I don't know. I think that, again, it's direct character matching, so you'll get a result. If the search term is in that abstract, it will show up, but as for linking them together, I don't know exactly what the plan is for that, but I will find out.
Susan?
Yes?
What about search by subject? Because you have the search by title, abstract by full text. The word is from the full text, and when the students search by subject, they got a lot of articles. Not all the articles is exactly what they want, because it's take from the full text the word. Do you think to put subject to in the JSON?
JSTOR reproduces the journal as it appeared in print. So we don't add any content to what appears on JSTOR. They are faithful reproductions of what was in the journal in its original form. So we haven't added subject terms or anything like that. But if a publisher has, say, for example, added keywords in their article, we capture those as part of the text. But we don't add subject categories. I think that's what the question is, right?
Right.
We don't do that at this time because the objective is, again, to reproduce them faithfully as they were.
But I can just add to that.
Sure.
I can just add to that the two indexes for Hebrew material. These are the index of Hebrew periodicals of Haifa University and Rambi of the National Library are linking. We link every article from the indexes. So you have another search entry.
The other thing that's happening is that you can see that right column on that screen there. So there's things like recommenders and things like that. There are ways of clustering articles semantically or by subject, concept. So we're doing a lot of work where we're investing in understanding the content. And this is in English at the moment, where we're data mining that content and saying, well, what are the articles that are like each other, maybe in completely different disciplines that wouldn't have been linked up in any way before, but now you can see that this article is very much like that article because of the way it's treated semantically. So you can do a lot of data mining, which basically then creates groups of articles that are similar or that should be looked at together. And when people do searches, we're going to start to expose them to those materials through this kind of thing. So, right now it's easiest to think about how you make connections in very literal ways. Like, so I want to know if I put in a word in English, is it going to find an article in Hebrew? We're hoping that in addition to starting to try to do those types of things, that we can start to link these conceptually. So there's work being done in Hebrew on semantic data mining of content. So, over time, that's sort of the version of sky's the limit. I mean, there are going to be ways to connect these articles that we don't really envision right now. I mean, I would assume that, and we'll check on it, but I would assume that if you do a search and there's an English abstract, definitely if the English abstract is connected to the article, like if it's at the top of the article and it's a Hebrew article, you're going to get that article. There's no doubt about that.
There is a lot of difference because there is a lot of articles, and when you just put it in the abstract, it will give you only a little bit articles.
I'm sorry, say that again. When you
I said that if you just put in abstract, the word in abstract, it will be less articles.
Right, yes, of course, yeah, then if you have the full text,
then
yes.
from 100 you can get only 2 or 3 articles.
Right, no, that's for sure, but yeah, it would obviously be better, but what I was trying to answer the question was if there is an English abstract, you would only find what is searchable in English, that's true. But you would be able to link to the Hebrew article that is referred to by that. So I think that the investments that can be possible to do more extensive linking will be made over time. I think the other thing is we don't have any plans right now to translate large amounts of this content. But that's whether over time people might you can figure out ways to translate abstracts and things like that. That might be something that could happen over time.
Yes.
I was just thinking, since there are publishers sitting here as well, do you have any recommendations, such as entering keywords into the English abstracts that can make it easier for us to put our things up and have people find it easier? Do you have any lists of recommendations for publishers themselves? Because it's in both of our interests.
Yeah, I understand. That's a good point.
Just to enter the keywords into the abstract,
Yeah.
there we open it up for another.
I think
keywords, even for the volume or the actual article.
I think that's actually an excellent conversation to be having here in this room amongst you all, and I don't think that we're quite in a position to say, this is what you should be doing. Yeah.
There can be recommendations.
Yeah, I think that's a question that we would have to think about at great length, so I can't say anything sort of off the top of my head.
And I would just say that one of the things we're working on as sort of future JSTOR is doing semantic indexing and trying to actually extract the keywords in an automated way. We don't have that yet, but that's certainly something that we think if we can get a tool like that,
right,
that will help. But anything you can do in the interim, in a manual way, to, you know, to help the search would be great.
One thing I could actually do is check and see what we actually are doing in terms of capturing keywords, because I realize I brought that up and then I don't actually have it in the front of my mind exactly what we are doing with those.
So I think it's important to remember that we're obviously talking about historical literature here, so we're converting the content that goes all the way back. So that's already been done. So there's one aspect, which is what do publishers do going forward with their electronic content, which will be the sort of top of that long list. And then there's the question of, like, what does one invest to try to make that long list of archival materials more accessible? And, you know, part of the reason that there's so detailed specs, as was referred to earlier, for how to deal with the structure and organization of the journal, is that there are also guidelines for the scanning vendor about what to do with these kinds of metadata. What do you do with the abstract? What do you do with the keywords? Where do they go? They're tagged as separate parts of the record, and so, you know, users can search on those things, and we can develop mechanisms to add to those things over time. So, you know, I think that's, and whether you do that by the publisher doing it, or maybe you try to develop a crowdsourcing mechanism where people can put in, hey, I think this is a keyword for this, and allow users to do that. Those are all things that we'll be experimenting with.
For past issues.
For past issues too, so investing on the past issues to make them more accessible.
Well, would we be able, let's say, to put in keywords into our journal from 30 years ago? Would there be place for that?
Yeah, I think that's, we don't have that right now, but it's one of the things that we've been talking about how to make the building of this over time more collaborative, whether it's both with the publisher doing that, and some publishers would say, oh, I want to control that, I wouldn't want anyone else to do it. Some others might say, I'm comfortable with users being able to you know, fix the OCR or add metadata to the content to make it more accessible, or tag it. I'm willing to let people do that. So people have different views of that. We have to enable that mechanism to make it possible to make it an environment where both those things are going on. But clearly on the web, that's what you want. Right now, JSTOR is much more of a broadcast medium, right? It's this thing and people use it. There's not that kind of interaction that happens. That really characterizes the web, which is some of what I was referring to earlier in saying how you have to become innovative within the environment you're in now.
Okay, I'll just finish up by showing you one more of the many tools that we have available on the platform, and one is, this one is just the ability to save and track citations. So you'll see the little tool box there right above the top right of the article. And then hit Save Citation. And a few minutes pass. There we go. And so then it asks me to register for my JSTOR account. And anyone who registers for my JSTOR account can then use these tools to come back to their citations over and over again. And I've already got one, so I'm just logged in. And then you get a little box that says your citation has been saved. And when you return to your own account page, you can see all the citations right there, and return to them again and again. And I think that users are finding increasingly more value in that kind of thing as people return to JSTOR repeatedly. And I think, as Laura mentioned, we are sort of looking at who those people are that register for a JSTOR account, and it helps us understand a little bit more about who's using our platform. And I think that's all I had to show you, just a brief demo. Okay, thank you very much. I believe Laura, you're next. Bottom right. No, that's not it. This one right here. Okay.
so this is going to be very short. We just thought we'd set the Hebrew journal collection within the larger framework of the content that's on JSTOR to give you a sense of how that would work. So we mentioned this being an international and interdisciplinary corpus with about 1,600 archival journals. We add about 150 journals a year, so it's a growing corpus. And we publish in these big multidisciplinary collections, and we add one a year. We also have a large science collection. As I mentioned before, that it's interesting how much usage that gets, because we have like the journal Science in there, and some very prominent journals. And so there's a good connection between the humanities and social science literature and the science literature. We are looking to do a second science collection in the next 3 years. And then we have these smaller focused collections. We have actually several collections in business, music, math and statistics. We have a Jewish studies collection, which I'm going to tell you a little bit about because I think it's going to be an interesting sort of complement to your collection. Sometimes we even start these specialized collections to complement our primary source material. So in addition to bringing out this big collection of primary sources in plant science, we're going to bring in 40 to 50 very specialized journals. We already have about 80 journals in botany and plant science, and we're going to add another 40 or so that we really have most of the literature that people want to use when they're studying that. And I told you about this one country, the first country-specific collection we have, which was formed working with Irish libraries of historical journal literature of Ireland. We also have something similar to that for the UK for the most prominent historical pamphlets, which are sort of prototypical journals. And we have more current publications that are hosted on JSTOR. So the way this works is, I just thought we'd talk a little bit about what's how a year would roll out and where you would roll out within that. We launched a big arts and science collection this June. And we will be launching another one next April. So these are we are building the content even for the 15th collection now. So it's just an ongoing process. We are launching this plant science collection. So this is a specialized collection in April. And one of the ways when we build these specialized collections, we actually build a whole campaign around reaching not just the large institutions, but the specialized institutions. So there's we spend a lot of time looking at which institutions, by their usage, are good candidates for this kind of more specialized content. And so we can actually target them from the institutional perspective and also from faculty who are working in those areas. And then we look at where individual researchers are and what kinds of institutions they might be affiliated with. So it may not be the big university or college. It may be a little research institute here, or a specialized library there. So we can build like the larger universe of the researchers we want to try and get news of this collection to through a combined institutional and faculty-based approach. And we're going to do that with the plant science collection. We have another business collection coming out in August of 2013. So you can see it's this kind of rhythm of very large, sort of benches of journals across the disciplines, and then very targeted sort of cohorts of journals that we can specially market to specific audiences for. So this Jewish collection, which Anne developed and has been working on for the last several years, just launched in 2012. When we launch a collection, we don't have all the titles available. We put out a certain, good substantial portion of them, and when we make them available, we have ways for libraries to subscribe where they don't pay altogether until the collection is complete, so they pay sequentially. And we expect that to be completed in 2015. So this is multilingual and interdisciplinary. The areas that we're featuring are these some of the prominent ones: history, literature, religion, political science, gender studies. And the portion of the Hebrew language journals that are about Jewish studies will also be in this collection. So in that way, we're targeting all of these audiences who are interested in Jewish studies, and they will see the appropriate Hebrew language journals in that. And as whenever we put these kinds of special collections together, we're looking for both the depth, the historical depth of representative journals, and also for rare journals and for notable titles. And these are a few that are in the Jewish Studies collection. Now, the Hebrew Journals collection, we're expecting to launch in the beginning of 2014. So we're going to be bringing journals in, digitizing them, have a chunk of them ready to go, so that we can begin to offer the collection in 2014. And again, that then will be continuing to digitize through 2014 and 2015, with expecting to have all the journals in by the end of 2015. Again, multidisciplinary, single language, but multidisciplinary. Thanks to funding from our partners, that not only does this fund the making of the resource, all the work that's being done to tag it and to digitize it and to put it on the platform, but also to support institutions in Israel having access to this for a good period of time. 7 years is what we're looking at now. So it's a way of making all this work available here in this country to the researchers, to the institutions who would most value it. And again, we're going to have a moving wall principle for this, so you all will pick your moving wall, but that would be part of it. So that's the Hebrew Journals collection. That's when we expect to bring it out, and it will be probably one other, possibly two other specialized collections, but it will be the first to come out the door in 2014. Interestingly, that the Jewish studies, the interest in Jewish studies has been growing. This is just a look at what the usage has been since 2008. You can see we've had an increase of about 30% during that time. We expect this to grow even more as we have a collection now that's specific to Jewish studies, and as we're doing much more marketing to all the audiences that would be interested in this, and as we bring on your content, we would expect that this would grow even faster. But it's a very, very healthy growth curve for the usage. Thought we'd just have a little look here for your benefit of where Israel ranks in the overall usage of JSTOR. And your number 26, we've shown 24 here because we factored out the US, and is that the only other one that we factored out? Just the US, because that makes everything all tiny. But once you take that out, it's impressive. And this is without any Hebrew language content at all. And finally, this is a number of institutions in Israel who participate in JSTOR, and you can see that that's growing in a healthy way too. So that's sort of how the how the collection is going to fit inside the JSTOR corpus, and what we want to do, because one of the great values of JSTOR is how much data we have, and we want to share that with, we share it with libraries and we want to share it with publishers. We want to help you to understand usage, to understand in the context of what else is happening, and we can create a kind of a dashboard of what you want to look at and get you that information. Like, we can even say who's looking at your journals from different disciplines, because as users sign up for my JSTOR, they identify with which field they're in. And so when you see a user accessing something, you can see that, oh, an anthropologist is looking at music, or you can start to see these connections. So we can share that kind of data with you as we figure out what you're interested in. We can figure out what putting Hebrew language journals onto the platform does for this usage just within the country, beyond. So that'll be, I think, like benchmarking in a way that we can watch how things change will be a very interesting experiment for all of us in having this content. So I think that's all I wanted to say. Is there anything else that's...
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are there journals in the Arabic language?
We do not have any Arabic language journals. Is that correct, Dan?
We do not have any Arabic language journals at the minute, but there is Arabic content in JSTOR. And it is actually present on the platform. It's one of the languages represented, but we don't have any journals that are wholly Arabic yet.
Are you interested in the citation business? Citation, do you measure bibliometrics that is going now to be Altmetrics? This is your mission also already?
It's interesting you say that, because we've thought about a lot about the question was about Altmetrics. Are you all familiar with that? Yeah. Did some people say no? No. Okay. So usually they're very simple rating factors for journals, like impact factor, that tell you, this is a good journal, this is a bad journal. But there's so many other ways to measure the value of content, and it's not just always at the journal level. It can be at the article level, but that's not something that has been a factor up until now. Now with the rise of open access journals, and with the idea that these things are being commented on in social media that you can start to look at. Of course, counting downloads is one way to measure an article. There are a lot of different ways of watching this article, as it moves through the world, and that's what this Altmetrics movement's about. We've actually we thought at one point about just having a sort of a JSTOR metric of where do you rank in JSTOR. It was very interesting, because we did a test of a sort of a dashboard for an author, so they could see how many times they're cited and by which areas they're cited and where, in which countries and everything else, and we showed this at a working group that had a lot of faculty in it at different levels, like junior, to very senior, and even administrators in it. And our idea was to have this kind of dashboard for what happens on JSTOR, and then to start to import these different, social metrics and impact factor and everything else inside JSTOR. There was such an interesting range. One of the younger faculty said, "Oh, don't do that. Whatever you do, don't do that, because I'm not going to be able to get a job until someone sees what my JSTOR factor is," which was very interesting. Then the dean said, "Oh, that would be great. I'd love to see that." You know, so the same thing, the same thing happens. Another very young scholar, because we also showed the whole citation matrix within, like how things were being referred to, and they said, "Oh my God, can I have that? Because I want to teach with that. I want to show this article in the context." So you can start to see it could be very powerful as a kind of a, an author tool to understand where they sit within the, the interdisciplinary research and within their own field. So we had sort of ranking within your field and a ranking in all of JSTOR. And, so yeah, we're really thinking about what that should look like without being, too disruptive.
I ask again about Arabic language. Students can make searches in Arabic language. They can retrieve articles in Arabic.
They can do it in Arabic? No.
It actually is a little, for lack of a better word, funky, but you can do it. It actually works. And if you want, I can show you really quickly.
Yeah, no, great.
It seems like that's something that a lot of people are interested in.
Is that another language we should be thinking about?
Yes.
Trying to do this with? Would that be like a good complement to this effort?
Like our school has about 1,000 students of Arab students studying to be teachers. They're dying from it. It's very difficult for them because there's no publishing in Arabic here. We buy a lot of materials in Cairo. We used to, some of them still. And so we bring it in from the Arab world, but it's difficult for them. So, it's not too much serious right now. And we have them.
While this is loading, I can just also mention that one of the things that did happen as a result of the Hebrew Journals pilot is that we did make some sort of minor improvements, not really minor, but moderate improvements to search in general in non-Roman languages. As we were trying to improve it for Hebrew, and those little fixes apply to other languages like Arabic and Cyrillic and Greek.
And I'm not sure that you have Arabic on the keyboard.
Oh no, I'm just going to browse to it, just so they can, I don't think I could You can actually see it right in there. It's actually right in the... Alif is, as you can see, the American University in Cairo. It's a fantastic, seminal publication. I'm sure a lot of you know it. You can see it. So it does exist. And so it would again be a little funky, but you could actually, if you were typing in Arabic, you would get results if your search term matched what was in here. And Alif translates most of its article titles into Arabic, and some complete articles are in Arabic in this journal. So, just find that interesting. Okay.
Excuse me, can you do the same thing with Greek words, for instance, in classical?
Yes, yes, you could. It would actually work for modern and for classical. I mean, again, it wouldn't work perfectly, but you would get results.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. I'd like to conclude this workshop with a few words on institutional participation and the concept of the National Library in openness and opening and broadening access to content, Hebrew content, and specifically in large content, academic content. National Library, in its role as a major stakeholder in this project, is committed to ensuring maximum access to the digital Hebrew archive. Towards this end, an agreement has been negotiated with JSTOR for very low rates for Israeli institutions subscribing to the archive. In the framework of this project, universities and colleges budgeted through the Planning and Budget Committee of the Council of Higher Education that choose to participate in the initiative will be entitled to access to the digital archive at no cost for 7 years. on condition that they are committed to continuing their subscriptions following this period. Currently, if I remember correctly, all 8 universities has agreed to participate, and about 10 or 12 colleges. The National Library has also arranged that colleges not budgeted, including teachers, colleges, can purchase subscriptions at the same rate to which the budgeted colleges are entitled. Public libraries will also be entitled to subscribe to the archive access at the lower rates. And I know that hope the negotiation will be successful towards the public libraries and the teacher colleges as a whole, because we really believe that this material is unique, is important to students and teachers and research, especially in Israel, but also to other research institutions outside of Israel. The National Library will facilitate free access to the archive for Israelis living in the country who choose to register to the National Library as readers. In this way, maximum access to the archive, one of the driving forces of the project, will be achieved. Institutions that are not budgeted by the Council for Higher Education, that have not yet undertaken to purchase the subscriptions, can deal directly with JSTOR. Budgeted institution may approach the National Library and will do the negotiation together with JSTOR. Current project resources will allow the participation of between 50, well, I'd say 40, but I hope to go up to 60, reaching an anticipated total of over 600,000 pages. In the pilot phase, we entered 4 journals, Talbit, Sion, Megamot, Geografia, and altogether it was about 130,000 pages. So some of those, of course, journals were historical ones, beginning many years ago, and so the quantity of pages were quite large. And right now we signed already 9 journals at this stage, and we're in negotiation with 20 to 30 other journals, and we hope that some of the matchmaking that we made today will be successful. The JSTOR project is built on one of the central principles driving the National Library Renewal Program, facilitating open and democratic access to vast content held in the library collections and outside of the library collection in a manner that maximizes advanced technologies, promote exposure, use, and engagement with a range of materials. We are committed to the active dissemination of knowledge to the broadest audience possible. One project that exemplifies these objectives in the historic Jewish Press website, an initiative undertaken by the library together with Tel Aviv University, headed by Yaron Sur, the academic head of the project, which presents today over 900,000 pages from 36 historical newspapers around the globe. And we added this year also Yiddish titles, and we hope that next year we'll add English titles, Jewish English titles from the States, together with NYU, New York Public Library, and Columbia. The designated internet platform provides OCR search as well as JSTOR and attracts thousands of researchers and interested readers. Access is free and provides the visitors with the content spanning decades and continents in a format that preserves the material for the future. Using a similar model, we created an internet platform to open our rich music collections to the public. The library undertook to rescue, preserve, and provide access to over 30,000 hours of digitized sound, ethnographic and commercial, accessible for both researchers and music lovers through a designated website. Also here the goal is free and open access with the goal of exponentially increasing exposures and use of the treasures the library holds, and preserving these treasures for the future. As the JSTOR project demonstrates, collaboration, both local and international, is an integral element for achieving open access. The National Library's recently launched Ephemera project embodied these principles in partnership with the UCLA Library. The National Library will digitize 150,000 items of Israeli ephemera, including posters, leaflets, tickets, postcards, and broadsheets from throughout Israeli history. As part of this global project, NLI will make these items available online to an international audience of scholars, researchers, and those interested in Israeli cultural history. Analyze work to ensure long-term digital preservation of the material for generations to come, central objective of JSTOR as well. Library has invested significant effort to enable the broadest possible free access and ease of use, enhancing those institutions that will join the project, not only for the academic institution in Israel, but also for public libraries and Israeli general public. Providing access content material is our high priority, and through JSTOR initiative, we have made this possible for current users in Israel. In partnership with JSTOR and the University of Haifa, and with the support of our partners, the National Library will cultivate a wide participant base and facilitate greater exposure to and engagement with the corpus of Hebrew scholarly journals. This is an opportunity again to thank you, the partners from JSTOR and Haifa, for this collaborative effort, and the publishers that hope will join in to this exciting project, and I'm sure that it will also be very successful for the users. That's our aim. Any questions for them, and I will. Thank you very much for joining us.